time to join us. My name is Chris Valentine, the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Marketing Communications here at UCCS, and I'll be your moderator again for this town hall. So just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to turn it over to Chancellor Reddy here in just a moment for a presentation. It'll take about 20 minutes for him to say a few words. When we finish that, I'll introduce a panel of our Vice Chancellors, and they'll answer a few questions that have been pre-submitted to us. We finish that in about 10 minutes or so. At about the bottom of the hour, we'll open up for live questions. So during the presentation, I welcome you to look at the bottom of your screen. There is a little area you can click on there to submit a question, and then we'll get to as many of those questions as we can in the second half of the hour here. So. Obviously, this is technology, so as for your patience with any technology challenges, we'll do our best to get back online as soon as we can if there's any issues there. One thing you may notice different, we do have closed captioning going on the bottom of your screen this time. So give us some feedback, let us know if that's working. We're using the YouTube system, so hopefully it works well for you. So with that, there's our overview. I'm going to turn this over to Chancellor Reddy to get us started. Chancellor?
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon and welcome to our third virtual town hall. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Before I proceed, I'm pleased to let you know that President Mark Kennedy joined us today, and I asked him if he could share his thoughts on navigating through these challenging times. Although he's not able to stay with us for the Q&A portion of our event, you may submit questions addressed to him using the link on your screen. We will forward them to the President's office. Now, on to President Mark Kennedy.
Well, thank you, Chancellor Reddy and the team for inviting me. One of the most frustrating things about COVID-19 is that I don't get to visit the campuses, your beautiful campus, and I look forward to doing so at the first opportunity and appreciate the opportunity to engage virtually. You know, I'm greatly appreciative of the collaborative spirit of Chancellor Reddy and UCCS in working with the other campuses on key initiatives that are important for our long-term future, like our effort for online acceleration and our transformation innovation. And I truly do believe these will be a significant benefit in the future for UCCS. But I'd like to talk to you today about two big C's that are dominating our lives today, and a third C that I think provides a way forward through these challenges. And the first two C's are coronavirus and civil rights. The coronavirus has consumed not just our campuses, but the world for the past 3+ months, and I expect it to continue for some time to come. The civil rights upheaval that we've seen sparked by the tragic killings of George Floyd and too many others, this has caused the issues of racism, inequality, and justice to the fore. And we are seeing decades, if not centuries, of frustration and rage given voice to in the CU community and really across the nation. But I would suggest that the third C provides a significant part of what has to be a multifaceted solution to the first two C's, and that C is more CU. Those things that CU does and does well will help address the challenges in front of us. We prepare the healthcare workforce here and around the system that will help beat COVID-19. The physicians that you graduate from the UCCS branch of the CU School of Medicine are going to be in our front lines, as will the nurses that you graduate that will enter the workforce and help serve those that have COVID or other maladies. Our strength in public health, your strength in public health, gerontology and wellness will serve our communities and beyond, and the expertise of our faculty and staff is a considerable weapon in fighting the public health emergency. Researchers at UCCS and across the system are contributing to important work on coronavirus therapies, antibody testings, and vaccines. In understanding how this pandemic is impacting higher education, I have taken the lead to get the other universities in the state organized to advocate with our federal government for aid to offset the drop in state funding, and the resulting CARES funding has helped to mitigate the painful adjustments we've all had to take. It's crucial that we marshal our resources as a university in this fight, making our ability to safely reopen campuses this fall and continue to deliver on our mission all that much more important. I'm proud of the work that's been done at UCCS and around the CU system to thoughtfully and deliberately go about planning and delivering on plans to prepare our campuses for fall. And I want to thank everyone, because I know a lot of hard work has gone into it and a lot more hard work will need to go into it. for us to welcome students back in the fall. We play an integral role in providing education to all, no matter their race, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, veteran status, and more. And I can tell you, with both Debbie and I being first-generation college graduates, I know what a difference the power and promise of higher education can do for one. But if we talk about the uneven impact of the pandemic has resulted, a big part of that is the uneven attainment of higher education. So we must redouble our efforts to make sure that all have access to this higher education that can fulfill their potential. Chancellor Reddy and I have joined with our colleagues around CU beyond to celebrate two recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions. One ruling in favor of our DACA students, and the other affirming CU's existing policies and practices banning discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. These are not only our policies and practices, they are our values. This campus and others also have had forums and engaged in scholarship to have critical conversations on the issues of race, equality, and injustice. I want to applaud the UCCS students for their recent peaceful and passionate protest in support of Black Lives Matter, and to Chancellor Reddy and members of his team for joining them. We at CU have heard loud and clear that people on our campuses and beyond want action, and they want it now. We are taking a variety of action steps, including stepping up our recruitment and retention of students, faculty, and staff of color, requiring training around issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, examining the policies and practices of our campus police departments, assessing our relationships with Colorado correctional industries, and engaging conversations, listening, so that we can discover what other concrete steps we need to take. So whether you're talking the coronavirus or civil rights, we won't solve these issues overnight. It will take a focused, sustained effort on the part of all of us, but I appreciate all you for what you're doing to that end, and I look forward to working with you as we travel what promises to be a challenging road ahead. Thank you again for this opportunity to be with you today.
Great. Thank you, Mark, for spending some time with us today, and please feel free to stay as long as you could with us. I speak for all of us when I say that I'm very appreciative for everything you, the regents, fellow chancellors, and the vice presidents have done to support our campus and really state of Colorado higher education system, and including working with the state officials, the CDHE, the governor, and others, and for helping to coordinate efforts across all the campuses in the CU system. So thank you. In line with the president's updates, I'd like to start by sharing a few items with you that are worth recognizing and celebrating. It's impossible to ignore that we're in the middle of a national conversation, a reckoning about race, injustice, and inequality. We're all hurting, but I know members of our Black community are hurting the most, and I'm here to listen and offer my support. We have always committed to a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and respect here at UCCS. But it's not enough to simply say that we are committed. A true commitment takes work. I'm so proud of the students, faculty, and staff who gathered peacefully following public health guidelines 2 Saturdays ago to educate our community about racial injustice. As I told them on that day, I want to make our university a place where every single person feels safe, welcome, valued, and respected. Black lives matter. They always have and always will. The work we are doing today is to understand and support issues faced by our Black community. But it's also about human dignity and building a culture where all humans, irrespective of their background, respect each other and root for each other's success. So it's time to listen to one another and then take action to build a better future for all of us. If you have ideas to make UCCS safer, stronger, and more inclusive, we are listening. And let me say that we have and will continue to take action as a campus. First, I'm moving the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, as well as Human Resources, under my direct supervision, starting July 1st. This will highlight our efforts to make sure that UCCS stays committed to making our campus a safe and equitable place to live, learn, and work. I also want to thank our Police Chief, Mark Pino, who has committed on behalf of our campus police to be part of a positive change. Our police officers already undergo rigorous training, from education on implicit bias and de-escalation tactics, to make sure that they can keep our entire community safe. And I'm proud that they're committing to even further anti-bias training. I also want to thank all those who are contributing to our efforts on our campus. The Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Mosaic have been working hard to bring these issues to light and involve our community in the conversation. I met with them recently and have set up several meetings into the future to listen to the concerns of students, faculty, and staff of color. My hope is to listen, learn, engage others in taking action that makes a difference. These serious times, there are also so many bright spots. I was proud to sign my name to a letter written by the University of Colorado President, Mark Kennedy, and chancellors in support of the DACA program. The Supreme Court's decision to uphold the program is a victory for our students and for our entire community. I was also pleased to see the Supreme Court uphold workplace protections for the LGBTQ community. As the president said, employees of the University of Colorado have enjoyed these protections for years, but that hasn't been true for some others around the nation. These decisions touch the lives of millions of Americans, including members of our Mountain Lion community. They're reminders that we are each valued and important simply because of who we are. Now, allow me to give you some updates on the campus related to personnel and fall opening. As you know, we made the difficult decision to lay off some of our employees and furlough some others, anywhere from 4.6% to 100%, depending on their job function. But I want to share with you that almost 90% of our employees experienced a 4.6% furlough or less, and many of them zero. As you know, we are working with some difficult financial realities. The state cut higher education funding by 58%. We also supported a no tuition increase for students coming in this fall. We received some funds through the CARES Act, half of which can be used for student relief and half of which can be used for institutional relief. We are forecasting working with a budget that is about $29 million smaller compared to the budget last fiscal year. This resulted in us having to make those difficult personnel decisions, including layoffs and furloughing of some employees. Given that we are in the middle of a pandemic, we are anticipating that we'll need to increase our capacity to support our campus and community stakeholders with health and mental health services. Last year, we had a wait list of over 60 students who needed services at one time, which resulted in us seeking help from outside counselors because we couldn't really keep them on a wait list. We need to be able to fill this critical need. So we made the decision to exempt healthcare workers from furloughs. So they are available for providing healthcare services for both our internal and external stakeholders. Now, no leader ever hopes to make a decision like laying off or furloughing a valuable employee. But if a tough choice has to be made, the way that information is communicated is just as important as the decision itself. I have learned that a few individuals did not hear directly from their supervisor that they would be furloughed, but instead received a letter in the mail. To any member of our community who did not receive the news that they would be furloughed or let go in a respectful, compassionate way, I apologize. That was not my intention. And let me say to all those affected by furloughs, thank you for sharing in this sacrifice together. Now, I have some updates on the fall semester. I know you tuned in for those. On the academic side, we are finalizing plans for fall classes and academic services. Safety continues to be our top priority as we try to balance our budgets. It should be no surprise to you that things will look different than what you used to. We continue to operate under the assumption that in-person classes will maintain the guidelines provided by El Paso County Health Department. All students, staff, and faculty members will be asked to wear face coverings. Most students will have a mixture of in-person and remote learning classes. Here's a piece of good news. The county epidemiologist visited our campus last Thursday, reviewed our plans, and recommended that we can safely increase our classroom capacity in many instances, more than what we planned for. That means more students can come and have an on-campus in-class experience, and we can safely reinstate many student activities for the fall. Prior to that visit, we were expecting about 35% of classes to be held on campus in the fall. Now we are expecting closer to 50%, and that number hopefully could go up if Colorado continues to see a decline in the COVID cases. To accommodate these students, we're working on public health restrictions that would allow us to open the library and rec center, and we expect the dining halls to be open with limited capacity and carry out meals. We have many more updates on this front, which we'll address in the Q&A portion of the event. We also have some exciting news to share. Starting this fall semester, every incoming first-year student will have access to a new Chromebook, loaned to our students for free by the university for their entire education at UCCS. I want to give a kudos to our IT folks for helping make this happen. Access and affordability are at the heart of our mission. In this way, we are removing a heavy financial burden for our students and preparing them to pivot between online and on-campus experiences within minutes, hours, days, weeks. I'm pleased to share that if the program is a success, we're taking steps to loan a free Chromebook to any student who needs one in the coming years. Now, on the enrollment side, summer enrollment continues to be strong, but fall enrollment is still down 14.9% from last year at this time. This is an improvement over last week when we were seeing a 16.8% decline. So we are moving in the right direction. At this point, we are in line with the national data, which indicates that regional universities like ours may experience a 15% reduction in enrollments this fall. Our enrollment and marketing teams are working hard to reach prospective students. Faculty of all our schools and colleges are reaching out to current students to encourage them to come back to school in the fall, so that they continue to make good progress towards their degree and certificate programs. Many of you already jumped in to help with our enrollment and recruiting efforts. Thank you. This is already showing a positive effect. I appreciate all the hard work done by many areas on the campus. Data shows that many current students are simply on the fence about re-registering for classes this fall. So every effort we make towards those current students helps close the gap for us. I have a sincere plea for all of you. Please help us to recruit and retain students so we can stay committed to our goal of student success, but also avoid making difficult financial and personnel decisions this fall. We need to communicate to both incoming and current students that things may not be as usual. However, our faculty and staff are working hard to provide an engaging learning experiences, whether it be on campus or remote. Now I know there have been questions about returning to work on campus. We're taking a phased approach to resuming activity on the campus this summer, leading to welcoming students back to campus in late August. The first phase, beginning July 13th, will bring essential services and some critical services back to campus. It'll also help us to make sure our public safety measures are effective in keeping the campus community safe. The second phase, beginning July 27th, will restore other campus and academic services. The third phase, beginning August 10th, will welcome back students and resume academic and student activities. Certainly, through fall, we will encourage supervisors to work with their faculty and staff members whose primary duties can be performed remotely to keep working remotely. And employees who believe they're at a high risk are encouraged to work with their supervisor and human resources office to work on accommodations. I want to give a shout out to human resources. They put a lot of material on the website, so I encourage you to go review those and ask questions if you have any. Now, that's enough time for me for the moment. Let's open up for the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Chancellor Reddy. I'm going to invite our panel of experts to turn their cameras back on, and I'll introduce them. Our panel includes our Provost, Tom Kristensen, Carlos Garcia, our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Chuck Litchfield, our Vice Chancellor of Administration and Finance, Harper Johnson, our Assistant Vice Chancellor of Information Technology and Chief Information Officer, and Laura Alexander, our Assistant Vice Chancellor and Human Resources Officer. So Chancellor's been talking for a little while, so I'll give him just a break to catch his breath and start with Tom Kristensen. So Tom, we had a couple of questions that were submitted prior to the town hall that we just want to cover here in the next few minutes if we could. So the first question, someone's asking, do you recommend that faculty email their students and touch base over the summer and assure them that they will design engaging courses? So Lookin talked about a little bit about the engagement of faculty and their students coming this fall. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly that's something that I would strongly encourage faculty to do as we get things settled. Now, some of the courses still aren't settled on exactly what framework they're going to be in as we continue to revise our estimates of classroom capacity, things like that. So it may be good to still wait another week or two before sending some of those emails out. However, as we get those things settled, it's very important for the faculty to reach out to the students and just help them to understand what the course is going to be like, especially if it's in a format that the student may not have been expecting. If they were originally registering for what they expected to be on-campus class, and now it's going to have some other components to it, the faculty can help reassure the students that that this is still going to be an excellent course, that it's well designed, and what this will look like. So in a couple of weeks, when things get a little more settled, I would strongly encourage our faculty to do that.
Perfect. Tom, go ahead and leave your mic on. I got the second question for you here. Lots of folks are talking about prioritizing which classes are on campus versus or remote this fall. And this person recommended that we extend this to all freshman courses as possible. So maybe some thoughts on how we're choosing what classes are in person this year and which ones are remote.
Sure. Certainly freshman classes are an important part of our prioritization because we really want our freshmen to have that on-campus experience and that part of the college life. Now that being said, some of our freshman classes are too large to fit in some of the classrooms with reduced capacity. So some of those will be delivered in either a fully remote or in some type of hybrid format. And so we'll see how that develops with some of the classes. But clearly freshman classes that contribute to that freshman experience are part of what we really want to be able to deliver on campus. Another aspect of that are the classes that require specialized facilities. So some types of laboratory classes, studio classes, these are ones that the experience really, it's difficult to reproduce in a remote environment. And so we're working very carefully on how we can safely deliver some of those classes as well in an on-campus experience. And then there's a third category of classes where the faculty simply felt that for pedagogical reasons, these classes were best offered in an on-campus environment. And we're doing our best now to figure out within the classroom capacities and the safety constraints, how we can deliver those classes as well in an on-campus environment.
Thanks, Tom. I'll let you catch your breath there. I'll transition a couple questions for Chuck. Chuck, on that same theme, folks are asking about how were the COVID caps calculated for rooms? In other words, how many students, how was that calculation done, number of students per room? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. So our initial calculation for our classroom capacity was very conservative. And the process was for us to go into the CAD drawings for many of the standard classroom sizes and overlay a 6-foot circle and then determine what that, how many students that left in the classroom. We then applied that square footage factor to other classrooms of similar sizes. And that gave us our initial capacities, which we found out good news was when the El Paso County epidemiologist came to visit, she was able to walk through some of the classrooms that we had mocked up and to talk to us about ways to really improve the safety of the students, but at the same time offer us the opportunity to increase the classroom capacity. And so that has been that's been a real gift. It's nice to have started conservative and know that we get to open that back up. And our recovery teams right now are working on going back through the classroom caps and recalculating them. And we're working this time directly with the associate deans, with a number of other teammates from the colleges who know their classrooms best, to make sure that for the classrooms that have either unique configurations or have unique lab requirements or unique computer requirements, that we're taking those into consideration and that we're applying some of this new information from the epidemiologists to really make sure that that we are on top of what our classroom capacity could be.
Chuck, we'll stay with you just for a second. Change the perspective now from the faculty. It looks like this question came from a faculty member. It says, will there be plexiglass installed in the classroom so instructors don't need a mask to talk? So talk about the 12-foot circle and the mask rule as applies to faculty.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's a very important aspect of what we're doing. We heard very early on from faculty a concern that, you know, if I'm in my classroom trying to talk through a mask and project particularly into some of the auditorium style classrooms is going to be really difficult. The epidemiologist confirmed that if we can set a 12-foot radius from the instructors, that we can in fact allow them to take their mask off during that portion of instruction. And so that will really be, I think, a relief to many of our faculty. The 12-foot distance will ensure that both the faculty member or the instructor is safe in that environment, as well as the students who are in the classroom. In some cases, we will install plexiglass where we have concerns about a 12-foot separation. In some cases where we have customer service interfaces like the cashier counters and things like that, we will install plexiglass because we know that, you know, people will have to be closer than that 12-foot radius. And so in some places you will see those installations where they're necessary.
Thanks, Chuck. We'll transition over to Carlos with a couple of questions for you. So lots of folks are asking about quarantine. So question, Carlos, is, will out-of-state students be required to quarantine when moving to campus?
Oh, thanks, Chris. Based on current guidelines, unless they are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, students coming to campus from another state are not required to self-isolate before coming to campus. Only students coming from another country will be required to self-quarantine for 14 days prior to moving into the residence halls or returning to campus.
Take that one step further. How's it applied to faculty and staff, maybe who've been traveling out of state? Do you have any quarantine rules for those folks?
The answer is similar for faculty and staff. Again, based on current guidelines, faculty and staff who are returning to campus after visiting another state are not being required to self-isolate unless they're experiencing COVID-19 symptoms or feel they have been in a high-risk area or know that they have been exposed. It's best to check the COVID-19 website for the campus for the most current information. But at this point, that is not part of the equation of requiring folks to self-isolate or quarantine after visiting another state.
Thanks, Carlos. We'll transition to Harper. So Harper, I have a couple of technology questions for you. So the Chancellor mentioned that we're going to provide Chromebooks for incoming students. So the question here says, that's wonderful. They're inexpensive and fine for most needs. But what will you do for students who needs to download a desktop version or the full functionality but require a program to be successful in their course? So someone who needs more computing power than the Chromebook, what will we say to those students?
Sure, thanks, Chris. Appreciate the question. So the Chromebooks are a great tool. They should provide access for most needs. And for those that aren't able to use the Chromebook for a thick application, we've been working with the engineering college to provide a remote desktop instance. We've developed an application that will allow any user to log in through the VPN and find an open lab computer. So we've set aside almost half of our lab computers because of the COVID restrictions, and we're going to make them dedicated remote desktops. So we will load the required software application onto those desktops, and the individual can log in and use the application in that fashion.
Harper, I'm cheating a little bit and reading forward to the live question, but someone asked, do these Chromebooks have webcams and microphones?
They do, yes.
Easy answer. All right, thanks. Transition to Laura. Laura, a question for you about para. So it said, for employees with para, what is the status on the university versus employee contribution in light of the financial situation? What is the plan if the state decides they aren't contributing to this year?
Thanks, Chris. So I'll answer the second part of the question first. I have no information that suggests that the state would not live up to the employer contribution for the para plan. And likewise with all of the other retirement plans for the university. So the first part of the question is, how does the furlough scenario affect retirement contributions? And the answer is quite straightforward. For retirement, it's all based on the actual pay that the employee takes home each pay period. So with the furloughs in place, obviously what the employee takes home in terms of pay will be less for the temporary period that the furlough is in place. And so for that furlough period, the retirement contribution would be less for both the employee and the employer because it's based on a percentage of total actual pay. So yes, temporarily there will be a smaller retirement contribution on both ends, both employer and employee, while the furloughs are in place, which is scheduled to be through the fiscal year ending June 30th of 21. But I have no knowledge of any kind of plan to disrupt the employer contribution or the state contribution.
Chris, I just want to add something to what Laura said. Since we are working together as campuses and with the system, at this point, we are looking at, hopefully it's going to be one fiscal year, but I'm hoping it'll end even sooner if the financials look better. So my hope is that we'll work hard to make sure that these furloughs end sooner than later. But ideally, we want to plan for a fiscal year. But we did make all of those indefinite for now, hoping that we can adjust either way.
Thanks, Chancellor.
Laura, that's the only HR question I have for you, so thanks. Chancellor, we'll turn back to you. So we've had a little break from your speaking a minute ago, and you actually answered the first question. So the question was, when will furloughs begin and the duration of the furloughs, and you just touched on that. So thank you. Let's go to a question. Two questions people have asked about. We've made a message recently that we're going to be open in the fall, and people are worried about the backlash when we're only 30% or 50% open. So how are we going to provide more accurate or more information to our stakeholders as that information becomes available?
So first thing is we need to recognize that I don't know what normal means anymore, right? It's just not our campus, but the entire nation is struggling with it. In fact, the entire globe is struggling with it. What does normal really mean, right? But we need to come back and commit to our mission first, which is access and affordability, educating the workforce, really taking care of our students and working towards their success. So what we are doing is, knowing that times are uncertain, we want to make sure that we keep the students in school, continue their education, have them stay focused on their career options. So what we will do best is whatever format we can offer classes, whether they be 35%, 50%, 80% in class, or whether it be remote, we'll continue to commit as faculty and staff to provide the best educational experience a student can get given the environment. So I think in this environment, I'm not sure if this is going to go in a week, a month, a year. We don't even have a vaccine yet. So I want to put out there that we are also dealing with uncertain conditions, but we'll commit as a campus to provide the best educational experience possible for our students, hoping that we'll come back to what they're used to. But my hope is maybe we'll come out even ahead, because now we're all getting used to technology. So maybe we'll have more options in the future. So I'm going to stay positive on it, but I do understand the concern that we don't have a crystal ball that gives information with clarity.
That's great. Thanks for clarifying that. So this is a simple question. One person had it. I'm sure lots of people are scratching their heads around this one. It says, will we be ending the semester after Thanksgiving break or just going remote after that? So can you clarify what the end of the semester looks like?
So the cabinet and the deans debated on this quite a bit, what to do, because the thinking is during Thanksgiving, students might leave town and come back, and that could have some challenges. I would rather make that call a little later than now. I don't feel rushed to make that call today, because let the semester play out. I mean, we also know if there is a resurgence of COVID, it could happen in September, it could happen in October. So, or things might settle down, and I hope we're all keeping our fingers crossed that they will have a vaccine sooner than later. If it happens, maybe we don't have to take that drastic step. So I think universities are making choices based on their student body. And you and I know 85% of our students are Colorado residents. That means many of them are close by, and I'm hoping that Colorado continues to stay safe by not seeing an increase in COVID cases. So we will make the decision based on the health guidelines we receive, but we didn't feel like we need to make that decision now. But I said last time, I'll repeat again, safety is our top priority. If things get out of hand, we'll definitely make a call on that.
Okay. The last question of the pre-submitted questions that we'll hit on, then we'll go to the live questions, is back about furloughs again. So why was the $60,000 your baseline for furloughs, and how did you determine that number?
So we looked at a lot of things when we did decide on that number. First of all, I think we need to, the consensus figure was reached by all campuses. One of the things I was just giving kudos to President Kennedy, he's been working very hard to keep our campuses together and make sure that we make several decisions together, learn from each other. So this was a consensus figure reached with the other campuses through their implementations as well. And some of the factors considered include consideration of different adjusted gross income thresholds in the federal relief package for families, the mean and mode of salaries on the campuses, expected economic strain on our lowest paid employees, as well as the need to cut personnel costs. So lots of things came into play, and we felt that was a number that we could work with and still protect a lot of our employees who are making that income or less.
Okay. All right, so that concludes our pre-submitted question. Thank you to those who submitted those before the town hall. I'm looking at my screen here, and dozens of questions have been submitted during the time here. So we're gonna spend the next 20 or 25 minutes addressing as many of these as we can. So let's dive right in and see how many we can get through here. So I'll start with Provost Kristensen. So this is a question that I've got a couple here in the list address the same question. So I've heard that instructors have yet to receive contracts for the 2021. Can you provide a timeline or some assurance for returning instructors they will be receiving these soon?
Yeah, I was not aware of that. Contracts are being processed in the colleges now. So I would anticipate that that will be the case. We are not really significantly reducing the number of classes we offer. Even with a 15% decline in students, that's really in a class of, say, 20 students, that's only 2 or 3 students. So, you know, we're still going to be offering the whole range of classes. So, yes, instructors should not worry. Their jobs should be secure, and we should be getting those contracts out here shortly.
Thanks. I'm just going in order here, so they're not really categorized. So, Chancellor Reddy, the second one is for you. How likely are more layoffs and further furloughs?
So at this point, given our forecast, I shared with you in my comments, we are looking at a 14.9% decline. And I'm going to tell you right now, everyone is working hard. The deans, the associate deans, chairs, faculty, staff. So my hope is together we're going to pull this through. The way I have framed it is we will plan for a 15% cut now and a 5% cut in fall. That is if the enrollments start getting worse. So fall census, which will happen in September, is going to be a critical month for us. So what I would say is let's do all the hard work now so we don't have regrets in September, right? That's what I would say. So it's really up to us how much we can do to help keep our students in school and help them graduate and let them make good progress towards their degrees. So I would say it's really up to us. So my hope is no more furloughs. I don't like it. No more layoffs. I don't like it. So, and that's why I said, even as you heard my comments, almost 90% of our faculty staff received either 4.6% or less, and almost half of them received 0% furlough. So I hope to keep it that way. We are working very hard to not impact people negatively, because this is a tough time. We need to be together on this. And my plea is, let's continue to work hard to make fall stronger.
Thanks. I have this question a couple of times. Address it for Chuck. Chuck, folks are asking about masks and face coverings. So is the campus going to require masks or face coverings in the fall? And if so, how will that be enforced?
So the current public health guidelines do require face coverings in office spaces, in classrooms. And so we expect that to remain in place throughout the throughout the fall opening. The question about enforcement is an interesting one. With regard to our students, we are working on a modification of the Student Code of Conduct, where the students will acknowledge that masks are a part of the normal experience on campus, and they will sign that covenant and say that we acknowledge that we're going to do that. We recognize that there may be some individuals that have medical situations where masks are not applicable, and Stephanie Hannenberg's group is standing by to work with them. With regard to our staff and our faculty, similarly, if they have health issues, we'll certainly consider those things. But for our suppression plan for the virus, it's critical that everybody wear their face coverings, and that they comply with the details of our plan, which will be put out shortly on where and when they need to wear those masks.
Also, I just want to add, Chris, you could state the website better, Return to UCCS. Keep an eye on that, and keep an eye on the HR website to stay up to date on what we're doing. But as you know, all these will be time dependent. You're going to keep hearing more and more details as we go through the months. So regret the confusion, but that's the way it's going to play out.
Thanks, Chancellor, because information is changing every day, and we're trying to keep everybody safe. So we will communicate those things as they change.
And keep fingers crossed, it's moving in the positive direction. So let's keep it that way.
The website Chancellor referring to, it's linked on our homepage of uccs.edu, but it's return2.uccs.edu. So we're doing our best to update that as information becomes available. So keep track of that one. Chuck, I'm going to stay with you. Another COVID question for you. You were our incident commander as we made the transition back in March. And the question is, what contingency plans are being put in place for the fall should a second wave of the coronavirus require the campus to close again?
Sure, that's a really important question, right? And all of the return to campus planning is focused around the idea that we can't assume that that we won't see the virus again. And so, as Carlos talked about, we are making contingency plans for things like housing quarantines, right? And we're continuing to order personal protective equipment for our healthcare providers and for campus. So that we are ready to move in that direction should the virus return. We are also putting a lot of our suppression plan things in place based on the idea that we want to minimize exposure to the campus. And so we're going to ask, certain groups and certain organizations on campus to continue to maximize the amount of remote work that they have for the fall, possibly even into the spring, depending on the developments in the healthcare area with regard to a vaccine, so that we can minimize the exposure on campus and suppress the spread. And so those pieces are foremost in our minds. All of our return to campus planning assumes that we may have to move in this direction. And even the faculty have been very great at working on how they would pivot if they are planning on offering high flex or other types of modes of delivery on campus, how they would flex in the event that we're required to start isolating people.
All right. Chuck, I'm not picking on you. You just been leading the charge on this. So another question for you. The individual asked, how do I find out when I should return to work on campus? The Chancellor in his remarks briefly outlined phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Can you briefly give a little more detail on what that means to people showing back up in their offices?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we are going to do when we publish the plan is there's already a checklist for individual units to use to look at how they phase their return and which individuals would work remotely and which individuals will need either staggered schedules on campus or will need to work on campus. And once the units go through those checklists, then they should be able to communicate directly with their employees about which phase of our return to campus will be applicable to not only their organization, but also to the individuals.
That's great. One more question for you, Chuck. They're asking can you fill a little more about the epidemiologists? So this is, can we be filled in a little bit on this role and what the person helped us do? So talk about how they came from the county health department guidelines.
So let me just start this by saying I am not a public health care provider. I'm an engineer and a finance guy, and so I'm going to do the best that I can to explain what the epidemiologist does and that kind of stuff. That's like rocket science to me. But what I can tell you is that the epidemiologist for El Paso County in the emergency management structure is the person that sets the standards for public health policy in El Paso County. And so that person is really relied on to be the expert to advise the county commissioners on exactly how El Paso County should be operating under the public health orders. That's the important thing for our community to understand. This is the individual that is the subject matter expert that can talk to us about what do we mean by a 6-foot radius? What do we mean by a 12-foot radius? How effective will face coverings be if an entire class has face coverings? Those are the things that the epidemiologist is the expert on, and those are the things that we needed to have this person do when they came to visit the campus. Now, as far as a campus visit was concerned, what we did is we mocked up a number of classrooms for the epidemiologist to come in to see what we had done and then to comment on and to give us ideas of how we could adjust. And so those things included things like our tiered classrooms where they have fixed desks. They look like kind of like a semi-auditorium. The epidemiologist came in and looked at that and talked to us about how to think about separation between individuals, how effective face masks are, whether you're facing forward or back, to consider things like if the instructor stays within this distance of the podium, what does that look like in terms of a protective 12-foot range? We talked to them about how our HVAC system works and our ability to recycle air. All of those things are things that the epidemiologist takes into consideration in giving us back their recommendations. And so we were able to get really a hands-on look at our campus and some of the mock-ups of our classrooms and then get very specific recommendations. It's hugely valuable for us. It's a reflection of how important El Paso County thinks we are to the recovery of the entire county. And it was just really a valuable experience for our folks, and we really appreciate El Paso County making the epidemiologist available.
Thanks, Chuck. I'll let you catch your breath for a minute, and I'm going to switch to Carlos. Chuck may weigh into this one as well, but Carlos, folks have been reading the news, and they ask, have the positive cases of COVID that have recently come up for student athletes from other universities? They cite Alabama, Clemson, Kansas State as some examples who are returning to campus. Have that informed any of our policies that are taking shape at UCCS, safe arrivals, and for athletes, as well as some of that intercollegiate activity? Some thoughts on that?
Sure. Right now, we're taking a lot of our cues from the NCAA and the RMAC as it pertains to athletes being able to train on campus. Currently, we're not allowing any, or at least NCAA and RMAC are not allowing us to have any team type of activities. Individual athletes can train, so we're having some of that take place on our campus. I'm not aware of any of our athletes being reported that they've caught COVID-19, and so right now we're allowing folks to continue the conditioning for training, and we plan to follow all of the guidelines pertaining to having students come back, living in residence halls, et cetera. We typically have about 130, 140 student athletes that will live in the residence halls. The other 200-ish will live in the community. But that's where we're taking our cues, again, from the county health officials and the NCAA and the RMAC.
Thanks. Carlos, will stay with you. You mentioned earlier about the required quarantines for international students, and the question is, how will those be enforced or monitored? Is there a plan for that?
Okay. Well, students that are coming into the country and eventually end up being our students, they will have a stamp on. We will know when they come into the country. So right now we're not requiring them to stay in the residence halls, but we are asking them to again self-isolate prior to coming onto the campus. So we will know when they arrive, but we won't know exactly what their activities will be. I mean, we don't know about anybody's activities. We don't know, what I do. You don't know what any staff member does either. But those are the requirements that we're asking the international students to abide by. And again, we'll be monitoring that through our International Student Affairs Office, and be able to ensure at least that students won't come to campus prior to 14 days after entering the U.S.
I think we'll transition to Provost Kristensen. Question, I just lost it. Will classes that don't meet the minimum enrollment still run, or will the minimum number of requirements be reduced? Thoughts on minimum enrollments on classes?
That's a decision that's made on a college by college basis, but typically we will still be enforcing the minimum numbers because we're not really anticipating that dramatic a decrease in, individual classes. So yes, we will still be monitoring those, and colleges will continue to make those decisions as they always have. That doesn't mean that everything that falls below a particular number is automatically canceled. Typically, the colleges make intelligent decisions on that by considering whether this course is needed for graduation and other factors that enter into those decisions. So that decision-making process will continue.
All right, Tom, we'll stay with you. Looks like the faculty got busy here asking questions at the end of the thing here. So it says, in cases where class rosters exceed COVID classroom capacities, how are faculty advised to decide which students get to attend in person, which attend online, and how are conflicts with the decisions going to be redressed?
So at this point, there are a number of things that can happen. One of them is the faculty member or the college can request a larger classroom, and we will see how many of those we're able to accommodate. There are also opportunities to offer the class in multiple modes. For instance, have half the students attend on Tuesday's session and half on Thursday's session. Or if you're only meeting once a week, have half attend one week, half attend another week, and put some more of the content online. So for instance, one could look at a flipped classroom model, which is a popular national model where the lecture is delivered in an online manner, and then you invite a group of students to come in one class session and another group in another session to work with the faculty member in more of a discussion and problem-solving environment. So a lot of ways of working with that without necessarily having to require that certain students attend always remotely and certain students attend always on campus. Now, with that being said, there may be certain disability considerations where it would be necessary for a student to either attend on campus or to attend remotely. And the faculty will be able to work with those students and with our Disability Services Office to recognize those cases.
I'll start with you, Tom, with this question, but Chuck may weigh in on the return to class policy. It says, at what point will students know which classes are being offered online versus which ones will be held in person? I know that's a procedure is happening right now, but if you want to start, maybe Chuck can fill in some holes if needed.
We're in that process right now of figuring that out. We've kind of done the first round of it in terms of seeing what faculty are requesting. We're now working on the classroom capacity issue. Now that we've been told we can probably relax that a little bit, that'll help us have even more flexibility. So I think I'll let Chuck correct me here, but I think we're kind of looking at mid-July to try to get some answers out to the students.
Sure, Tom. Yeah, I'll back all that up and just say that one of the primary ways that students will be able to see the mode of delivery is they'll be able to log into their portal and look at their schedule, and the Reg Office, as faculty make decisions, will be making annotations on their schedule to show the mode of delivery.
Perfect. So we're getting towards the end of our time, but Chuck, I have another question for you, and then a last one for the chancellors. So 3 people asked the same question, Chuck, about will classrooms be equipped with wipes for instruction students to clean the desks, hand sanitizer, protecting the faculty and students. So what cleaning policies and procedures will be in place as we return to classrooms?
Yeah, so that's going to be a multi-layered approach, right? We are going to have our custodial folks working on cleaning the classrooms, and we also will make some of those cleaning materials available to faculty and students to be able to clean their spaces. The specifics of how that's going to work is going to depend on the different types of classroom and the periodicity for when custodial cleaning will come through. So it is going to vary a little bit building by building, but those essential components will be present in all buildings.
All right, thanks for that. So, Chancellor, this is more of a UCCS question and a system question, but the question is around the system initiative of online classes. So it says, with layoffs and furloughs, we're cutting back, but we're growing our online presence as a system. So I ask, why are we investing in this right now in the middle of this? So can you speak to that just for a second?
Sure. So number one is the system has started the initiative even before COVID-19 came along. So there was already an investment done in the initial phase to start this initiative off. And then if you think about what happened when COVID-19 hit, within a week, we all went remote, right? So I feel like, yeah, I think there is definitely something that you watch out for, but there are lots of committees set up to watch out how we're going to go through this process. There's a consolidation of what programs can be offered from different campuses. In some ways, you can argue that this is more important now than ever before in terms of online learning and technology and transformation. So I feel like we need to probably take advantage of this, because if other campuses are reducing funding on their online programs, I think we should increase funding on it. So one thing to keep in mind, no matter when we are in what kind of situation we are in, whether it's a budget crisis or not a budget crisis, we should really work hard to stay true to our mission, our core values, and our strategic plan. So we clearly identified in our strategic plan, online programs will be a key thing for us as a campus. And so the system also, under President Kennedy's leadership, has taken that on as a key initiative, but nobody forecasted COVID-19 is going to hit. But in my mind, I don't think we should pull back. I think we should be thoughtful about where we spend the money now. I think we should be more conservative on how much money we spend, but I would not abandon on the project itself. I think there'll be challenges. We need to continue to work towards sorting those out. But I think, how about we all become very strong in offering online programs, put in tools that help students study well, and give faculty more tools to give that experience to the students. So I would say I think it's an important initiative, and we'll just watch it and continue to work through that. I'll also ask Harper, who is also part of one of the committees, to chime in if you'd like.
Sure. I think it's important always to, as you pointed out, to stick with the strategic plan. And those strategic investments, even in a downturn, will help us to be stronger when we come out the other side. Add to that the investment's not just on the part of our campus, but it's on the part of the system as a whole, so that there is a lot of technology and a lot of other people's efforts that we'll be able to harness in order to improve efforts on our campus as well.
Thanks. I get to be the official timekeeper, so we're reaching to the top of the hour here. So I'd like to turn it back over to Chancellor Reddy, who has a few closing remarks to bring this to an end. Chancellor?
Thank you, Chris. Well, thank you for giving your time to listen to all of these updates from the campus. And I want to thank President Kennedy for coming in and sharing his thoughts as well. Allow me to share just a few more thoughts before we close out. We have never seen times like this before. In many ways, COVID-19 has simply accelerated changes that we knew were coming down the pipeline. Changes to the way we have always done things in higher ed. It has never been more critical than we innovate. I just shared with you, especially in digital and online learning, take ownership over our costs and expenses, and share our ideas to make UCCS a better and more efficient institution. Above all, we must continue to keep our focus on our students, whether they are prospective, incoming, or current. If you have ideas to strengthen our enrollment and student success efforts, please share them. I'm listening. We're listening. Campus leadership is listening. College leadership is listening. In so many ways, the success of our university during this challenging time depends on all of us pitching in. Just as the success of larger movements for acceptance, diversity, and inclusion depend on all of us doing the work together. But I'm hopeful that if and when we make it through this year, there are good days ahead. We have learned a lot about ourselves in the past months. Some of those things we already knew. We are a campus with huge hearts for our students and an incredible work ethic to match. We're there for each other. We have the capacity to be flexible and adaptable. We can use technology to get us through seemingly impossible challenges. I gave you the example of Chromebooks. The college experience can look different than it used to and still accomplish the same goals and maybe even do better. Havel Center is almost complete and ready to open for fall. National Institute for Human Resilience, launched only last month, is already making huge strides in our community. By the way, we also hired two deans. One already is on campus, College of Business Dean Dr. Karen Markle. And Dr. Lynn Widler will be joining us on July 1st to lead LAS. So even as COVID-19 is going on, we're still making a lot of things happen and welcoming new folks to the campus. Above all, we have learned that resilience and resourcefulness are the keys to a brighter future. Sheer resilience is going to get us through this. And knowing that we're not alone. We're all in this together. And we'll get through this together, just as we always have. Thank you for everything you do and continue to do. You make me proud to be part of this tremendous community. Please be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Reddy. That brings today's town hall to a close. Keep an eye on your email for an invitation for the July town hall in about 4 weeks from now. So with that, thank you for joining us, and we will end this town hall. Good afternoon.